Welcome. This is called the Pop-Up Podcast. And it's just something that we thought of the other day to where we want to have a podcast. Everybody wants to have a podcast. Everyone loves podcasts, but nobody does them. And why does nobody do them?
Because they're inconvenient.
Because they're inconvenient.
You got to schedule it. You got to set up everything.
You need a studio.
Yeah.
You need mics. You need help. You need people. And we don't have any of that.
No.
We have absolutely nothing. So we have these little mics that we got from Amazon. We have these things that I put together here. And we're like, you know what? If we have some time, let's pull up. Maybe you should be the pull up podcast.
Maybe.
That sounds like we're going to fight somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the pop-up pod. We'll do it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and just talk. But the thing is, we don't have a schedule. I have nothing here to talk about.
Nope. No topics. No whatever. I mean, it's just whatever's going on.
That's either going to be the best part of the podcast or what's going to make it fail miserably.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. What do you want to talk about, Donna?
I don't know. I feel like there's just been a lot of challenges lately.
What are these challenges?
In the market for me, I guess. It's just shifting, instead of it being like multiple offer situations on every single thing, things bidding over $50,000, waiving inspections, all of that. It's like a total opposite effect, but in a weird way.
Yeah.
So like we've had a couple of listings that have taken a little bit longer to sell. We've had to do some price drops. So there's a shift in that way. And then buyers have become a little bit more challenging, but in a different way. Like instead of, hey, I'm going to advise you on what, but it's so hit or miss with property. Because there are some properties where I'm like, this is the offer I would write. And you need to go, way above list price. You need to waive inspections. We need to do a short close, all of the things, right? But then there's other ones that's like, well, we can negotiate whatever we want on this one.
You're right. Right.
So right now I'm like trying to negotiate one that's like $10,000 off list price, full inspections, getting them to install new appliances, things like that, which is crazy. Mm-hmm. So it is just so weird right now.
And then the one that we listed, we were listed at $500,000, and then we went 10 days, no offers, ghost town. I told these people that they should be looking towards 550, which I thoroughly thought, because it was on 10 acres, listed at 500. 10 days went by, no offers. Showings, no offers. And then we dropped to we listed at 525.
Yeah, we listed at 525.
I was like, you guys, we're going to get up to 550. They were banking on that, and so were we. We were like, this is going to be quick. This is going to be a madhouse. Then no offers at 525, dropped to 500. Now we had with 4 offers to go under contract at 530. Like by days 11 and 12.
Yeah.
It just didn't make any sense. It's just weird. The same happened last year in September. Last September is whenever the beginning of crawling myself into a real estate depression.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because that's whenever rates jumped up over 7 in September. And then everybody cooled off and freaked out. And then last September, October, November, December were the slowest that I have ever been.
Yeah.
And it's I don't know if it's it was last September. Maybe this is a thing that they're doing to try to close out the year, like the government or whoever are trying to close out the year on a down note or something.
Right.
Remember it was.
Yeah. It was slow. I mean, I remember it being slow, but I feel like my business was still doing good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
think honestly, I feel like with changes like this, it just comes back to getting your mind right. Mm-hmm. And you being able, not you as in you, but just an agent in general, being able to wrap your head around what's going on, what the changes are, and then having a more optimistic and solution-based view on things versus, oh my gosh, everything's going to slow down and nobody's going to buy and my listings are going to sit, and you know what I mean? What are you putting out there so you can attract what you want? Law of attraction.
And that's last year at this time, we were not on the same team. You had went out on your own, and you went out on your own in August of last year.
Yeah.
I was still on the crop team. So you at that time, you were like, I am gonna take over the world. I made the jump, and I don't even know what an interest rate even is.
Yeah.
And you were just getting I remember you were getting contract after contract after contract. I remember JD joined the crop team. He was killing it. I remember Derek, my buddy Derek, who's on the bass team, he was killing it. And I remember like you three all killing it, and me sitting there like, do I need to quit? Do I need to go be a PE teacher, a substitute PE teacher again? I just feel like anything I did, I could not get. Like any contract I wrote, I lost. Any listing I thought was getting ready to be listed, they pushed it back. Everything I did was wrong. I just couldn't get it right. And you guys were all, I remember that distinctly. And then I remember once the year started up, I was like, you know what? I'm not ever going to go through that ever again. And then that's like when I started like a New Year's resolution to like do things differently. And then I started really catching fire like going into the year, which I've continued for the rest of the year. I remember that. And it was definitely like the law of attraction sort of thing.
Yeah, I think there's just like that flip, that switch that needs to flip inside of you of I'm not going to continue down this path, and I'm going to do whatever it takes, And I feel like, the silver lining with all of this is the agents that aren't, tough enough or not tough enough. It's probably not the right way.
You going out.
You ain't tough. You better get out of here. No.
Who are you trying to take over the belt?
No, nobody. I'm not thinking of anybody in particular. I'm just thinking of like the people that got into the industry because they're thinking that it's, it's easy or, like they can list a house and it'll sell in a weekend. Well, that's not going to be the case anymore. Like the agents with the skills and the knowledge and the experience are going to be the ones that prevail through any type of market, because we're dedicated to what it's going to take to learn and to adjust and to advise our clients and to adapt. But the people that just got into it that are just like part-time dabblers, this is not their career, they're the ones that are going to be like, meh, whatever.
Yeah.
Which is good for us and for everybody out there looking to buy or sell.
You've been in real estate. Well, we started like 3 months apart. We've been in it for 6 years. Over 6 years, how many times have you been like, I should just do something else?
Oh, probably 5. Probably once or twice a year, every single year.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah. Well, I think more, and it was all for every single time. It was for different reasons, but it all came back to a shift happening in the market.
Right.
Something changing. Like when COVID happened, it was like, oh crap! Like that
was scary.
What's going to happen?
That was
and
really
then
scary.
Rates dropped, the market goes crazy, everybody's buying, and then you're facing 10, 15, 20 other offers, and it's like, well, I'm never going to win an offer.
The hardest time that you went through, I remember, was the start of 2022. Remember? Like for the first 3 months.
Yeah, I know. It was the worst year of my life.
That's how you started 2022, how I ended 2022.
Yeah.
We just couldn't get a win.
We're opposite all the time.
Yin, yang.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, we both started the year with COVID, but
you started interviewing with builders. You did. You had like
Zoom
interviews
with
builders.
I did. Yep.
You were on the crop team still.
Mm-hmm.
You were on the crop team still. We were still like, and that's like we were still getting leads fed to us, and still couldn't get. You still couldn't like catch a win.
I couldn't catch a break.
I remember that. I remember you couldn't catch a win, and I remember like you being. It was like very beginning of January 2022. You being like in like the thick of it, to where like nothing can go right, and you're like, that's okay. I have this good listing that's coming up that I got. It's going to be listed at 500. They're buying at 7 or 8. And you're at my house.
Oh, yeah.
And then the dude randomly called you and was like, we're going with another listing agent that we knew that we didn't know we had to use or something. And basically in the middle of you being like having a breakdown, you lost a listing that was coming up.
Yeah.
Remember?
Oh, I remember.
I felt so bad.
That was like, that wasn't even what happened. That was like such a good lesson. Looking back on it, it was such a good lesson to learn because it was a $700,000 listing and they were buying up to $1 million. So I lost, $1.7 million client.
And you were getting photos like that week or something?
I was getting photos that week. But my mistake was only meeting with one of the owners. Like I met with the wife because they
right.
wanted me to come over immediately, and he couldn't take off work. So I met with the wife and did everything with her, and then he changed his mind.
Yes.
So my mistake was not having both decision makers there and working on and like jumping and working on their timeline instead of being the professional and saying, no, both of you need to be there. It's okay. I can come over in the evening, or we can wait until the weekend. It's not going to be detrimental.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. I remember that. And I remember thinking like I was putting myself in his shoes. So he probably like came in from work one day. The wife was like, hey, don't worry, honey. I already met with a realtor. I already have it all lined up.
Yep.
They're going to be taking photos this week. And he was probably like, what? You
Right.
did all this without me?
Yeah. But he knew about it.
He knew about
it because we had 3-way phone calls and everything like the whole time leading up until that appointment. And then, so it was like, he knew what was going on. But then I guess him just not being a part of it really
rubbed his pride the wrong way.
Rubbed him the wrong way.
He's like, I'm the man.
Yeah.
I need to make these decisions.
Yeah, basically. So, but I mean, and that was when I was going through it. And I think the reason, and this goes along with the video that you just made like a couple days ago or last week or whatever, but the whole reason that I was like so excited and jumping and like, okay, yeah, I'll come meet with you without him home. That's no problem. Was because of what I was going through at that time.
Right.
You know?
Right. You're
I don't want to admit that it was like a desperation mindset because I was still selling houses. It's just not like at the level that I really wanted to. Right. Mm-hmm. But it was kind of like, oh my gosh, thank you, God, for letting this happen. So that it was like the thing. The slump buster, right, you know, is what it was. It was like the slump buster for me. But and then that fell apart.
Gas on the pedal, not taking it like really on top of it.
Like
probably missing cues here or there, like not doing the checklist of all the things that you should be doing because you're in that desperation mode of I need to get this thing listed as soon as possible and I need to get a sale as soon as possible, and you're not like thinking. Yeah, and they're just like, yeah, we want to have it listed by Friday, and we want to go buy this other house, and blah, 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 you know, so I'm like, let's go, right?
You know, that's what you want to do, let's go.
Finally, this makes up for, 1.7 million makes up for, like, a lot of sales that I haven't been able to get over the last couple of months, and this will erase everything.
Right.
And then it's erased from you.
Yep.
And then that's when you, that's when I caught you walking at the top of my deck. With a glass of wine in your hand.
On a tightrope.
I was like, hey, get down.
No, but the highs are high, but the lows are definitely low.
I know.
You know, and navigating through those over the last 6 years has definitely been challenging.
It's the same story. And you hear about it when you first start. It's the same story. You get a bunch of contracts and then you feel good about yourself. You're riding high and you're like, I'm going to relax for like a couple weeks. And then you're like, oh, dang. Because the market you leave, once you're on a heater, the market you leave, even if it's 2 weeks, 3 weeks, it's not always the same market you return to.
Yeah.
And that's what got me last year.
Yeah, I remember that.
I went nuts last summer. I got like 7 contracts in like 6 weeks. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to relax. I just made good money. I just worked my ass off. I need a break. And I took like a month break. I basically quit taking leads. I quit prospecting, and I was like, I'll come back in September and I'll finish the year out. And when I came back, and when I left, rates were in the 5s. When I came back in September, rates were in the 7s. They just hit the 7s, and it wasn't the same market. Now when I'm trying to get leads, they're not answering the phone. Now when I'm talking to them, people I was talking to in August or July, they were taking a break because rates were over 7. Yeah. And I had to start all over. And that's what completely screwed me. Then I started acting out of desperation. I started being like, I remember we had weekly meetings with Rob, and I met with him in like October, November, when I was in the middle of just walking the tightrope on my deck. And he just looked at me. He's like, you need to go home. And he said, you can't sell houses the way you are right now. Because I was just frazzled. Like because I was just like not sleeping. I just can't stop thinking. Everything I'm thinking about is like, why am I not getting any sales? It's like 1 week goes by, 2 weeks goes by, 3 weeks. I think I went like 8 weeks without getting a contract. And trying as hard as I possibly could. But it's like when you over try, and they can smell the desperation on you, and you can't you're not thinking clearly. And I remember he's like, as
No,
much
and
as you
if
want.
you're going into conversations with like a negative energy, then they can feel that on the other side of the phone, or they
Right.
can see that, in person, whatever it is, they know.
And I started, I started like saying really weird things to clients. I remember like I met with this guy, and he was like, it was our first time out, and it was me and him and his wife and his kid. And I remember I talked to him on the phone. He's like, I've talked to a couple different agents, but I like you the best. We're gonna work with you. And I was like, oh my god, thank you. Meet them, and all they did was ask a simple question about like how much money do we need to put down. And I was like, well, you can, because they wanted to put 20% down. And I did the whole thing of, well, for every $10,000, it's only $50 a month in the payment. So you can put as little as 3% down if you want, because he thought you had to put 20. It was a very simple conversation. He leaves, they leave, everything went okay, I think, but I'm still kind of awkward, stiff. I knew I was, because I just really needed them to, I was really hoping they wanted to write an offer. And once he leaves, I was like, did I not explain that stuff right? Like the down payment stuff? I probably didn't explain that stuff right.
Oh, so
And I
you're
did.
second guessing
And
yourself.
I sent him this long text with like, these are your options, and this is what your cash to close would look like. And it was a long text. All this information about like closing costs would be this, down payment would be this, at 3%, at 5%, at 10%, at 20%.
Wow.
And I'm just like, this is probably what he needs. And I sent the text, and he just responded back like an hour later and was like, thank you. And then I never heard from the guy again.
Yeah.
I never heard, and it was just like, if I wouldn't have sent that and I would have just been normal,
Yeah.
or I would have just been more loose and normal on the showing, I wouldn't have just scared him away. Because I'm sure he left there like, what is, there's just like, I'm not weird, I wasn't being weird, but just like off.
Yeah.
Like something's off. Like I'm in the one bedroom, they want to see the bedroom, and I don't know like how to get out of the way. It's just like I'm just being weird the whole time.
In the way.
Because I'm just in my head, and now I'm in their heads, and now I'm sending them. Now I'm outside of their house, like looking through their. Like, did you want to buy? So. Man.
Yeah. So weird things happen when you get in those mindsets, I guess.
Yes. And the only way to not get in them is to consistently just do the job.
Yeah, which I feel like we have been doing.
Well, we're paying for the leads now.
Yeah.
Before, whenever, the last two teams we were on, the team owners were paying for the leads. They were paying for the thing. It was their thing. We were just working on it. You kind of had the freedom of like, well, if I don't answer the lead, somebody on the team will. They're not going to waste. I don't necessarily need to. If I want to take off, I can take off. Now it's like, well, Zillow leads are expensive.
Well, and that's really true, because when I went through the period last year of going on interviews and stuff, what ultimately it made me
with the builders.
Yeah, with builders. So I was still staying in the industry, but I was like, I'll just go sell new construction. It'll be better, whatever. It'll be less stress, more consistent. I can do that. It's no problem. Well, it ultimately led to me just deciding to go out on my own instead.
Oh, yeah.
And then once I did go out on my own, I was paying for everything. So it changed everything for me, which is why my September, October, November, December were great. January was slow, but I ended up making like the top 100 list in February somehow.
Right. Yeah.
So it was a slow time for everybody, I think, at that time. But then, yeah, March, April, May is when we started our thing. I was killing it when we started our thing.
Yep.
When we started our thing. We started our team. So ever since I made that decision, it's definitely made me be more consistent, even with anything that's going on in my personal life. Like, it's made me be way more consistent, I guess, because of that factor, because I'm paying for it now.
Right. It's
and
your
because
thing.
It's my name.
Right.
Yep.
Well, this has probably been long enough.
Yeah.
This is probably
way
good.
Too long.
I feel like I don't know what that says. I don't even
rambling.
know if it's even recording anymore. It probably
Shut off. Your phone died.
Oh, God.
The mics are dead.
Something's wrong. Something's wrong with this. I know. All right. Well, thanks for joining the Pop-Up Podcast. See you next time.